First off, I believe that it truly calls us to look to our history, to those who have gone before us. As I've talked with many of you in this congregation, there have been formative people and events in your life. Parents and siblings, grandparents or great-grandparents, or perhaps that one person who sat in church who would always remind you that there was a place for you, and with maybe a tweak of the cheek or a pat of the head, that they were glad that you were there. Perhaps it was a particular experience of living in intentional community, or of finding a place for that first time where you heard a word of welcome, a word of grace for you. Formative, incredible. Part of the rock from which we are hewn. And that doesn't mean that our story goes on, or that even the stories of those who touched our lives go on without blemish or imperfection. I think as we get a little bit older, we realize that each of us has our own quirks, our own struggles, those places where maybe we don't quite live up to our own expectations, or even God's hopes or expectations for us. But that as struggling and imperfect people, we become a living witness to those that we sit down the pew from, or those that are being raised up in our midst, either in church or at home. That becomes a place of the ongoing hewing, the carving of the stone. And we stand with Peter, imperfect, wondering, and in our own ways we attempt to give the answer, the one that works for us, the one that understands Jesus as fully as we can, as the Messiah, anointed, this chosen one of God, who comes and who gives life and hope to the people, creating something new. And this needs to be a living witness corporately, this creating something new. It's not just about you and your individual faith journey, or me and my individual faith journey, which so much of our culture and so many churches are focused on, but rather also about this corporate witness and how we speak this living word that overcomes any powers of death. You see, that's what Jesus is getting at with this illustration or this understanding of the gates of Hades, the powers of Hades, that there is a corporate witness that overcomes those places of death and destruction in our world. And for us here, today, knowing that death has struck pretty close, a block down the street, what is our corporate witness? How do we live a word that overcomes those places of death and destruction? Do we walk down the street to have coffee at the coffee shop? Do we talk with our neighbors at the Boys and Girls Club, or the businesses at 38th and Chicago? Do we get more involved in the neighborhood association? I realized at 8 o'clock last night, as I stopped at 38th in Chicago, and the vigil or gathering, or I'm not sure exactly what to call it, that as I looked at that gathering, I was largely an outsider. Coming from a wedding, I was dressed in a suit. The only one there in a suit. Standing there amidst that group, I looked around, and at that point in time, I was the only Caucasian or Anglo there. And as I tried to approach to hear more of the stories, to hear what had happened and about this young man whose life had been lost, I realized that people were turning their backs to me because I looked different on so many different levels. Only one or two people would talk about what had happened. Now that may be because it's tied up in a lot of other pieces. There's a sense of whether gangs were involved and family dynamics and other elements that probably I and most of us would know nothing about. But how do we become a living witness in the midst of this? I think part of it is showing up. Showing up often, as much as we can. And knowing that whether we are ignored or just standing there, that we're there, a part of the community. I heard an individual from Our Savior's Lutheran Church who came down to our corn feed last week, who gave another witness against violence and in terms of a new way of being. And it had to do with the corn feed. That this person saw a group of young men come to the corner of the parking lot and stop. Stopped at the corner of the parking lot and took off whatever colors they had on. Whether it was an armband, a bandana, whether it was a certain color coat, they took it off and then came into the parking lot as a group, knowing that this had to be a safe place for all. That is a profound witness. And as you looked around last week at the corn feed, there was a diversity that was powerful and palatable. A richness in music, in cultures, in people, in activities, in the children. When I dream of this church, to which Peter is given the keys, and that we are called to be part of the living faith, I think of that sort of place. Where all know welcome, where all shed those pieces of hurt, of violence, of other, and create a new way of being. It's a dream, but it's a living faith and a witness. I invite us to live into that. You see, the keys don't stop with Peter, and I'm someone that doesn't believe that the keys only belong to the bishops in some far-off land or even in our own land. But the keys are given to each of us to bind what is good together and to loose those things that destroy, to claim a new way of being. So take your key this week. Start your engine, open a door, do something that is going to proclaim a living witness that springs from the faith that has been hewn before us. Thanks be